1 week from today, jury questioning will begin in the sentencing for convicted killer Joseph Duncan. It's the sentencing that could either spare Duncan's life or send him to Idaho's death row. And those jurors will have a lot to think about during what could be a 6-week trial. KXLY4's Melissa Luck has been following this story since the beginning. Melissa, the attorneys have been keeping very busy this week.
Yeah, they have. Attorneys on both sides have filed a flurry of motions in the last week, 32 in all. Most of those motions are sealed, and a gag order prohibits anyone involved from talking about the case. Still, we know from all we've learned in the last 3 years just how much is at stake in this case.
You're pleading to the charge of murder in first degree as contained in count 1.
When Joseph Duncan's sentencing gets underway in Boise next week, you will not see the tearful Joseph Duncan you saw in Kootenai County. In fact, you won't see Joseph Duncan at all. Cameras won't be allowed in federal court for the 6-week trial. But jurors will have a lot to consider. Jurors will have to decide if Duncan gets life in prison or the death penalty for kidnapping Shasta and Dylan Groene and killing Dylan in 2005. In making that decision, those jurors will hear weeks of disturbing testimony. They'll hear about the kidnapping at the Groene home in 2005, how Duncan murdered the children's family so he could kidnap them for his own sexual gratification. They'll also hear about the 6 weeks the children spent with Duncan at a remote Montana campsite, and how Duncan shot Dylan, then disposed of his remains while his sister watched. Those facts are not in dispute. What's still somewhat of a mystery, though, is how Duncan's attorneys plan to defend him. Everyone involved is under a gag order, but according to motions filed in recent months, Duncan's attorneys plan to somehow show how Duncan's troubled childhood and mental health problems made it impossible for him to resist killing and molesting children. Jurors will hear from mental health experts, police, psychologists, and forensic specialists, and possibly Joseph Duncan's family. But they won't hear from the only surviving witness. Attorneys agreed Shasta should be spared from testifying and won't face in court the man who killed her family. And Joseph Duncan has major legal power on his side. His chief defender defended the likes of Timothy McVeigh and Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. However, the prosecution has a much more powerful weapon: videotapes and pictures Duncan took of his crimes and his own admissions. Live in the newsroom, I'm Melissa Luck, KXLY4.